So we have a golden opportunity here, which is that the biggest demographic of people who have left the workforce and either stayed home or started working remotely are mothers of school-age children. So we're in a special situation to take advantage of this and use it to our own benefit to kind of get away from sending our kids somewhere 7 or 8 hours a day to be indoctrinated by people who, quite frankly, are enemies to a more traditional conservative or Christian way of life. And instead of those people teaching our children our morals, our culture, our values, we can go back to having parents and mothers teaching our kids those values.
So that is a homeschooling mom who's very excited about the fact that during the pandemic, more people chose to homeschool their kids. She feels like that will free them from the propaganda they get at schools. No word yet on what's going to free them from the propaganda they'll get from the news outlet that she's literally broadcasting on at that exact moment. She's fine with that. But here's what's interesting coming out of this. Homeschooling did increase quite a bit during the pandemic. Although the numbers dipped a bit from last year's literal all-time high, they are still significantly above what they were at before the pandemic. In 18 states that shared data through the current school year, the number of homeschooling students increased by 63% in the 2020 to 2021 school year. It only dropped by 17% last year, so it is still significantly higher. And by the way, to give you a bit of history, homeschooling grew rapidly in popularity following the turn of the century, before leveling off at about 3.3% of the school age population, about 2 million students in the years before the pandemic. But it has risen quite a bit, and with still some concerns about the possibility of a new wave, some occasional mask mandates, if not lockdowns in school systems. Nelini, I'm interested to see, are we gonna get back to what it was like before the pandemic in terms of homeschooling? And if so, is it gonna take a while? What do you think?
I'm not sure. I think that until we actually have infrastructure that supports parents, that supports communities, that supports families to work. You remember that this is also parallel to women losing their jobs en masse, and it's also parallel to the Great Resignation. A lot of people leaving their workplaces because they didn't feel treated with dignity and respect. So until we actually have workplaces that treat staff and workers with dignity and respect, and we have the PRO Act, which will allow everybody to unionize in this country, or at least protect the right to organize a union in this country. Until we see, more investment in creating new green jobs for our communities, I think we are going to see homeschooling increase. If it's increasing in Black communities, it's probably because people got laid off or don't want to go to their jobs that didn't treat them with respect. And so I think that I cannot see the homeschooling issue without seeing the economic issues that we have been faced with during this pandemic.
Sure, and you mentioned it increasing the Black community. Let me give people those numbers. The proportion of Black families homeschooling their children increased by 5 times, way above the average increase, which was already high, from 3.3% to 16.1%. The proportion doubled across other groups, but it's largest amongst Black families. And one mother said why, potentially. I think a lot of Black families realized that when we had to go to remote learning, they realized exactly what was being taught. And a lot of that didn't involve us. My kids have a lot of questions about different things. I'm like, didn't you learn that in school? They're like, no. And so the mom on Tucker Carlson was talking about having more control over what is taught, but that can swing in multiple different ways, Nelini, and that's an interesting wrinkle I hadn't expected.
Absolutely. I mean, think about for all the folks who've been spewing about critical race theory, think about all the things that we don't teach about American history. I mean, I only learned that suffrage was like Susan B. Anthony and then the 19th Amendment being passed, not Alice Paul or all the people that brought that together. I only heard about the civil rights movement. That was Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, not the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee or the Freedom Rides. Didn't hear about that until I was an adult and had to, use the internet to look these things up, or Ask Jeeves, I think, which was the search engine at the time. And so I think it's really, really important that, I think it is something that is quite important as we're talking about the education system that has been so ingrained in some of the protecting American values, which really means protecting, our history to not actually show that this country's history is not all that good.
Yeah, 100%. No, it is fascinating. I think we're gonna have to see as years go by. I was speculating in our production meeting that maybe people who started homeschooling will now finish out, like if it's high school, they'll finish that out, or if they're in 6th grade, they'll finish to 8th grade. Maybe it won't be affecting incoming new students as much, but it might take a few years for us to see a big change.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.